To conclude our discussion about truth and what is truth, what kinds of things are true and false, I'm going to present and I'm going to claim that there is a true principle called we're going to call the one truth value principle. And basically what this principle tells us is that every proposition has exactly one truth value. It's either true or it's false. And it's not both. And the first implies this, but it's worth stating it expressly. And it's not neither true nor false. So the idea is, take any proposition that you're expressing, anything, it has one truth value. Now this bothers people for several reasons, but let's hone in on one particular example. And it's an historical example. And here we are in the city of New York, and those of us who went to school, elementary school here, learned the history of the city of New York. And there's the famous story about the Europeans, when they came here, buying the island of Manhattan from the Native Americans that they encountered in Manhattan. And when I was growing up, we called them Indians because they mistook them for being natives of the country India. But the people from Europe, for a trunk full of trinkets, jewelry, costume jewelry, junk, bought the entire island of Manhattan, what's now worth billions of dollars. And when did that take place? In the early 1600 or the mid 1600s. So imagine that it took place in the middle of the day at noon on January 25th, 1962. And let's think of proposition number 14, that the number of people on the island of Manhattan at noon, exactly at noon on January 25th, 1652, was an even number. Even number, odd numbers, even number being divisible by 2. Now, notice what the one truth value principle tells us is the proposition expressed when you or I speak number 14 or write it is either true or false, but not both. But the question is it true or is it false? And some people say, well, gee, we can't say whether it's true or whether it's false. And they think that that's a counterexample. And notice by answering that, they're saying, we don't know whether it's true or false. Why? We weren't there, and nobody counted the number of people. Nobody has any evidence about whether that number, the number of people there, was an even number or was an odd number. But notice that is a very, very, very different thing from claiming that it's neither true nor false. Right? Is it true? Is it false? Well, we might not be able to tell. But remember, what makes that true or false is going back in history on that date. Was the world such that whatever number it is, let's say it was 10, it would have been an even number. And let's say it was 11, it would have been an odd number, right? But the facts in the world, the number of people that were on the island at that particular time, determines the truth or falsity of that. Perhaps we don't have any evidence. We have no reason to think that it's true, no reason to think that it's false, but the proposition has a truth value, namely because it either correctly describes the world or it does not correctly describe the world, and whether it correctly describes the world or it does not is what determines the answer to those last two questions, whether the proposition was true or not. Now, having a better grasp on truth, remember, to summarize the important things, we now have the notion of a proposition. That is, it's what the token that's used. We have sentence types and particular use of those sentence types by a person to have a certain meaning, which gives us a proposition. So the propositions that are expressed are the things that are either, and we sometimes call proposition statements, are either true or false. And what makes them true or false is whether they correctly describe the way the world is or not. And it could is, I'm not talking in a particular tense, it could have been was or will be. But the idea is what makes something true is that what makes a proposition true is that the proposition correctly describes the way the world is, and false when it does not correctly describe the way the world is. And we notice for every proposition that you can express, it has only one truth value. It's either true or it's false. It's not both, and it is not neither.